Russ, you want to?
All right, everybody, welcome in. I was waiting for the video, but I guess Frank doesn't have the video, and since we're doing a joint pod tonight, there's no intro video. But welcome into the Boiler Express podcast. We've got three of our normal five, but we also have three of our buddies over there at the Sky U podcast. As you all know, we're partnered with Big Banter, and as part of our obligations with Big Banter Sports, we're doing these collaborations with any Big Ten opponents before we play them each week, and it's been a lot of fun. It's increased a lot of camaraderie and brought a lot of a good talk and social media awareness to all of our podcasts. So before I welcome them in, though, I do want to talk about our sponsors at the Boiler Express. Martin Vintage is our newest sponsor. You can see the shirt that they sent us all.
Modeling it well, Russ.
Yeah, hey, I try. Go check them out. Use the code BXP at checkout for 10% off. All their cool kind of old school takes on Purdue sports and Purdue shirts that we've got. And we got comments already. Nice. Our other big sponsor is the Blitz Boards. Go check them out on Twitter. That's the easiest way to get a hold of them. Dylan is modeling that for you all.
Like a Price is Right model.
It's kind of a cool tailgate game. It's a combination of a lot of things you might be familiar with, from Yahtzee to cornhole to beer pong. It's just kind of got its own thing going. It's a lot of fun once you get into it. Go check them out. They do great work. But welcome in. We got Kurt, Max, and Spencer from the Sky U Pod. How you guys doing?
Doing good. We were at a bachelor party down in Arizona watching the Gophers epic collapse there at the end of the Illinois game, but had some drinks, put it behind us, and looking forward to taking on Purdue now.
Awesome. Max, Spencer, how y'all doing?
Great. Thanks for having us on.
Definitely.
Yeah, like
so,
sorry. No, I was just to say we're still trying to recover from both the loss and the weekend, so we are definitely looking forward to moving on and talking about this next weekend.
Yeah, well, as the three of us above you could tell you, it could get worse. We've definitely had a rough season. I think that we're one of those teams that you could say we're better than what our record shows, but at the same time, you are what your record says you are. So we do have a game this Saturday. I believe it's at 3:30 Eastern on, is it Peacock? I believe it's
we got
Peacock
NBC.
Network.
We're big time.
Oh, is it NBC?
Okay.
Look at us.
I guess we Purdue fans just got used to seeing like 3 or 4 games in a row on Peacock Network, and we thought that's all we could get now. Especially
the olds, man. The olds hate the Peacock. They get so upset. Oh, they get so mad.
It's the nickel and diamond, man.
Oh,
it's like every time you want to read an article, you got to buy something. Every time we're on ESPN Plus, you got to buy ESPN Plus. We're on BTN Plus, you got to buy BTN.
Hey, you know who doesn't do that? You know who doesn't have to pay for this podcast? Everybody doesn't have to.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Because God knows we do not need to charge for this.
That's right. So I think was the last I saw, Purdue was actually a 1-point favorite. Yeah, so Purdue is a 1-point home favorite. The over-under is 46.5. And I guess we'll go back up top here. Frank, Dylan, how do you guys feel about this game coming up Saturday?
Well, if you would have asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have said I wasn't feeling great. The fourth quarter, after seeing Minnesota this past weekend, no offense to Minnesota, it just reminded me that the Big Ten West is just a slugfest. That anyone can win at any given night. So I honestly don't know, and I think that's why Vegas doesn't seem to know either. So that's my take.
I'm hoping I can go to the game. I've kind of just remembered right now it's at home, so that's good. Good on me, great fan. No, I'm hoping Purdue bounces back from Michigan. It was a tough outing there in Ann Arbor. Our guy Chris was at the game. He doesn't have a voice, so he's not here tonight, so he can't speak on the atmosphere there at the big house. But yeah, I'm predicting Boilers by a billion. You know that. That's my go-to.
Okay. Kurt, Max, Spencer, how you guys feel?
I probably have to second what Frank was saying. 2 weeks ago, I probably would have looked ahead, and said, I feel like we're pretty confident against an Illinois team and a Purdue team, who both have been kind of on the downside this year. But again, it's the Big Ten West. It's a slugfest, and now I'm not really surprised that it's shifted by 1 point. we kind of were talking about it before we came on the podcast, but yeah, I just from the outside, as someone from the inside looking at Minnesota, we've been watching this team. Anything could happen. This Minnesota team's been so inconsistent. They've been giving up, big leads. So it's a little worrisome to see what's going to happen this weekend.
Yeah, I think watching, earlier in the day, we saw Indiana beat Wisconsin, and it was kind of like, oh man, if we can, just put Illinois away, then we kind of definitely still own our destiny in the West. And then dropping that with the backup quarterback coming in the last drive was like, oh yeah, you can't really expect anything or look past anyone. So I feel like coming into the Purdue game, especially an away game after that tough loss, is we just got to regroup. Hopefully PJ can get the guys focused. He always talks about you just got to go 1-0 in the Purdue season, which I guess that makes sense. Just stay focused. So hopefully they can do that.
Yeah, everyone outside the top three, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, I feel like it's pretty random who's going to show up that week. Maybe Rutgers is that next team. Maybe Iowa. I can't give Iowa that, though, since we beat them this year. But, yeah, it's just – I think a lot of Big Ten West teams feel this way. It's been a roller coaster. But for the Gophers, I know it's kind of a roller coaster within the game. There's stretches of the game where we are playing lights out. Even last week, I thought there were times the offense looked as good as it has maybe all year. And then – just a couple drives where maybe we get a little too conservative or we just miss some wide open plays and the game just completely gets flipped on its head. So I don't know what to expect. Looking into what these teams have done, I'm going to put out a prediction, but I have no idea what's going to happen this Saturday.
Yeah, it seems like we're kind of right back where we were last year, different teams in different spots, but that's the way it felt last year. Is there was 5 or 6 teams in the Big Ten West that were like, okay, team X just lost. We would control our destiny. And then, they go and lose and drop the ball. And it's like, at some point, It felt like a 4-loss team was going to end up going to the Big Ten championship. Luckily, Purdue held on at 6-3 and we were able to go, but it didn't feel like a year where we won it. It was just, it felt like a year where we didn't lose it as much as everybody else did. So yeah. You okay there, Dylan? You're just showing off the cigar there?
Yeah, no, Eric from the OHIO podcast sent us cigars, and so I forgot my humidors right here. So shout out to Eric. The weather here in Ohio has been terrible, so I haven't been able to enjoy any of these, but soon.
There you go. You just act like it. It's like
shout
a
out to Eric. Yeah. I don't listen. Never mind.
Not to sidetrack or anything, but like you said, Purdue last year, they hang on to the season. They make it to a Big Ten championship. That's just something the Gophers just cannot do. And that's what's really frustrating. It seems like for the past 3 years, it seems like the Gophers have had an opportunity to maybe come out on top. And this year especially, I felt like this is your best shot. It seems like everyone is down and yet just can't get it done. And that's what's so disappointing and frustrating. And as you all know, the Big Ten is just going to change completely next year. And who knows what's going to happen when that happens. So yeah, it's frustrating, but hey, you get excited, you get up for it. A classic Big Ten West matchup, last West matchup between Minnesota and Purdue. So it'll be fun either way, but yeah, I just wish that we could have got one under the belt before, these divisions kind of fade away.
Yeah. Hey, never say never. Like we said, nobody's really out of it until the season's over. We'll see what happens.
Purdue can make it. Anybody can make it.
I want
to take a second to address a viewer comment here. And this is something we did kind of plan to talk about with you all, so it's fitting, but
we're all calling me Castro. No, okay.
Ask these guys if they are ready to move on from Fleck. This is from.
I think we all are as a conference.
Minnesota crew. We'll let you guys take the ship on this one. What do you think? Just kind of assess what you think of PJ Fleck as a whole, and how he came in and how he's doing now, and maybe where some of his shortcomings. But if you can just give us a sense for not only you all, but how the fan base feels as a whole, would love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I guess I'll start. So we'll start off with he's not going anywhere. He just signed the contract extension last year. He beat Iowa, kind of got that, finally conquered that, feat that he hadn't done yet for a while. And so now we're kind of left in year 7, and it's just a lot of the same, like Spencer said, that we've seen the past 3-4 years now. Terrible special teams, pretty conservative play calling, and just kind of plays it overly safe. But at the same time, we're stronger in the trenches than we've been previously before he got here. Always have a solid running game. And as much as I hate to say it, there has been a consistency of this program that we probably haven't seen. I would argue that the regime before that started bringing that in, and then he kind of bumped it up a level with that 2019 season. But yeah, I don't think I'm ready to move on from yet. As much as it's disappointing these last 2 years of how we felt like we were close to being that team in the West. Yeah, I don't think he's going to go anywhere, and I think you still just got to play it out for at least another year. If it's another year similar to like this, where it's like going to be 6-6 or maybe a 5-7 year, then I think you can talk about moving on. I don't think we're there yet, though.
Yeah, I feel like, and we've all kind of agreed or talked about it, that, PJ has been a great recruiter, and he has brought in a lot of talent. That's been a big spot, even with like Kurt mentioned, the previous regime, we'd bring in 2-3 stars, but we just kind of, we saw a lot of growth within the program where guys would come in kind of unknown and they leave going to the NFL, whereas now guys are coming in, they do have 4 stars next to their name, and it's kind of nice to see, more talented players wanting to come to Minnesota. On the flip side, the progress, or as far as player development, just hasn't always been there under PJ Fleck. And then as far as X's and O's goes during the game, and we joke, but I would seriously, I wish he didn't have a headset. Like I don't know what he's thinking sometimes. His usage of timeouts, his just game management has been terrible and cost us games. So from a recruiting, from a culture standpoint, I have no problem with them. I'd like to see him less on camera and hear less from him, but I hope the X's and O's, he can figure it out. I don't know if it's new staff or what, but I feel like I'm right down the middle. There's days I want him gone, then we win. It's like, okay, I guess he can stay.
Yeah. I kind of agree with what both Max and Kurt said. PJ will get these players to drink the Kool-Aid. He's got all these mantras. He's got row the boat, It's just everywhere, plastered all over his office. And you know what? If you come to the University of Minnesota, you kind of have to buy into that. And I think that he has a good way of instilling culture in his team. And I think that goes a long way. But like Max said, it's not really an X's and O's kind of guy with PJ Fleck. He needs coordinators around him to kind of be those people. And I think if you're looking at our special teams, it's been like horrendous, the worst of the Big Ten for many years. And you kind of see some hiccups on offense, especially here and there. So he just really has to look in the mirror and say, all right, how can we improve, as a team outside of this culture that he's built?
Yeah, I don't know if drinking the Kool-Aid is maybe the best statement when we had the preseason cult talk of that going on down up there.
But you just when the guy talks, you're like, yeah, you could see him running a cult. I mean, I'm sure he's a great guy. How hungover is Dylan? I'm not. Listen, I went to bed at 9 last night. Damon in the comments, except for hosting. Wow. Anyway, he could absolutely run a cult. Here's my thing with PJ Fleck. He wears a shirt and tie under a quarter zip. That looks so uncomfortable. It's not for me, that would be the most uncomfortable thing you could wear on a sideline. The maroon pants, the running from one end to the other when they switch, and it's just the dude. I don't know what he drinks or does, but I need some of it because that energy is cool. I'll say it. So how do you guys feel about row the boat? Is that something you're about? Is it something you like? Is it something you hate?
Well, okay. I don't like the oars or any of it on the uniforms.
Oh, that would piss me off too. I don't blame you.
Yeah. Every team's got their slogan. So if it's row the boat, that's fine. The prior regime here was brick by brick, but
Hey, we had that one too.
Well, yeah.
Shout out to Daryl Hazel. It wasn't good.
Yeah. So I'm fine with having a phrase and using it. It's got a meaning to PJ. I get he went through a tough thing in his personal life, and he brought it in to kind of be his philosophy as a coach, which is fine. That's cool. I just don't like it on the uniforms, and I'm not gonna wear like the or gear or stuff like that. But that's fine. If it gets people excited about the program, like for the majority of Minnesotans, by all means use it, because I want, the brand to get as big as possible. So
I mean, I think that slogan itself makes sense. Like you're all rowing the boat in unison, so it's like a teamwork.
we
like
got legs here. So
it makes sense, but like putting a boat oar on the helmet is just, it's like, all right, that's a little much.
Yeah.
But
hey, you're preaching to the choir.
So
as far as this podcast goes, these podcast hosts go.
What's the other one? Ski-U-Ma?
Ski-U-Ma.
Now the coach.
We talked about this right before we came on, Dylan. I even made sure we were going to pronounce it correctly.
I don't do words good. I don't do so. Like we get this is old news. But the coach before Fleck made that, right?
That's been around the school for hundreds of years.
Oh wow,
that's been a school. That's been like a fighting term for a while.
See, but that sounds way cooler than anything else.
Well, it's from one of the local tribes, like Native American tribes.
Oh, that's
because
cool.
way back when the story is like there was a rowing match. Funny enough.
Oh wow.
Or I don't know if it was rowing or canoeing back then. Something in the boat. And so when this tribe won, they yelled like Sky. It was like Sky U. So it sounded like Sky U. I think it was like, I don't remember what the end. The ending was different. And so one of the captains on the Minnesota, canoe team, whatever it was, they were that kind of coined it as Ski-U-Ma to fight in with the rah fight song of the school. And so that's been a part of the school for like 100 years or so.
When we first signed with Banter and I was looking through the list of podcasts, I saw your guys' name and I was like, that's a good name. There's some bad ones. Yours is a good one. Yeah, I give you props for that. It's a real good one.
It was all Max. Max came up with it.
Max.
Yeah.
It's my only good idea ever.
I'm not the idea guy either. Don't worry. I'm just here for nothing really. What's your signals, Eric?
To try to get into the game a little bit and kind of let each of our followers kind of know what to expect from the other team, because we did some season previews before the season even started, but we both know that things have changed, personnel has changed, injuries have happened, schemes have had to change because of the results on the field. So Frank, why don't you kind of let these guys below us know what our offense is kind of going through and maybe what to expect when we're on offense. And keep in mind, when we get into these breakdowns, it's supposed to be a beautiful day on Saturday. I think it's like 61 degrees, pretty much clear, maybe partly cloudy. So weather should not be a factor and should not change the game plans.
Well, and historically, we don't actually play very well in inclement weather. We've only won 2 games this season, one of which was extremely wet. We had a 6-hour rain delay, so maybe we need some bad weather. But offensively, we're pretty banged up. We're getting really creative on the offensive line, shuffling guys around. I think it was confirmed that Gus Hartwig, our starting center, has played every position on the offensive line this season. We're missing a starting tight end, just lost another receiver in Rashawn Rice. Abdul Rahman Yassin is questionable. So offensively, we're pretty banged up. And according to PFF, Minnesota's biggest strength is their coverage. So it's going to make for a really interesting game. I think it's going to be a low scoring game, and offensively, I think it's going to be maybe a 200 to 250 yard game offensively from Purdue. And I think that Purdue's strength being its pass rush, just going to make for a really interesting dynamic and a really interesting matchup between Purdue and Minnesota. So given that Minnesota sitting at 5-4 kind of controls its own destiny as far as a postseason is concerned. How do you feel about where things are? What has surprised you about Minnesota's team, and what has exceeded your expectations? What's kind of fallen below expectations? Just how are you feeling right now about your performance, and how do you see this game kind of unfolding from your perspective?
Spencer, I'll let you start this one.
Sure. What's kind of exceeded my expectations, I think the offensive line honestly has done a little better than I thought they have. We've lost a stud running back out of Mo Ibrahim. We had a lot of vets on the offensive line as well, so they kind of reloaded up front, and they've done tremendously well. Same with the defensive line. In this whole PJ Fleck era, we haven't really seen much action from the front on defense, and this year they're doing really well. So I've been really impressed with that. Um, in terms of disappointment, boy, I feel like just kind of collectively on defense, it seems like some games they're really stout, and then other games they'll just blow it. And I think we saw that, at Illinois, against Illinois. We have an All-American safety out of Tyler Nubin, who seems like he just kind of totally misanticipates a play, lets someone behind him, or just misses a pursuit. And that's sometimes been disappointing. It's almost as if there's a lack of communication throughout the defense, and a defense that has been pretty disciplined over the past few years. So I'd say that. Offensively, it's been disappointing because of PJ Fleck's nature. He's very conservative, and we have a new quarterback out of 8th and Cali McManus. And we haven't really been able to see him develop because you run the ball 30 to 40 times a game. I wish we would kind of be more balanced on offense. But otherwise, those are kind of what I'm looking at, as a fan.
Well, that was one thing in our kind of preseason preview, talking about the Big Ten was, how do you replace a guy like Ibrahim? Like I'm happy he's gone. I mean, he was a freight train of a running back, and then obviously bringing in a new quarterback. How does that look? But I think that is kind of, as you all talked about, that's kind of the identity that, at least in my perception of Minnesota, is that they're always going to win the battle in the trenches. They're going to bring it every time. It's almost kind of approaching what we expect from maybe previous coaching regime from Wisconsin. But that's really interesting take there. You want to see a little bit more balance out of the offense. Anyone else have anything to add to that? That was a great take.
I think for me, offensively, my biggest, the thing I've been most pleased with is Darius Taylor, obviously, just as a true freshman running back, kind of taking over that RB1 role from Mo Ibrahim. And I think the biggest surprise for me is just we didn't really hear his name in the offseason. He didn't even play that first game against Nebraska. All we heard about was Sean Tyler, who was transferring in from Western Michigan, who he's now had so many fumbling issues that he's barely going to see the field probably for the rest of the season, hopefully. We were all high on Zach Evans, who was kind of a younger back that we saw a little bit last year. And he's shown a little bit of promise, but he's also been banged up along with Darius. So, yeah, I think for me, the biggest plus side is just that we do have kind of that stud running back to kind of start over with as a freshman.
My question from a Purdue fan's perspective about your guys' defense would be, what does your pass rush look like? What does your defensive line look like? Because that seems to be what could trip us up the most. Like Frank was talking about, our O-line has been a revolving door at pretty much every position, not just in the way that they block being a revolving door, but the fact that we've seen 3, 4, 5 different guys at each position at this point in the season. When we can protect Hudson Card and we can kind of get our run game going with a little bit of momentum, we look like a pretty daggone good football team. But when we can't, it's 3 and out, turnover, 3 and out. So how have you guys been at kind of getting pressure, not just in the pass rush, but also in the run game?
Yeah, I would say the D line has been the strength of this defense. It's deep this year. It's by far the most athletic we've had. Jaw Joyner does not lead the team in sacks, but he by far generates the most pressures out of anyone. All Gopher fans tweet it out every Saturday. We feel like he gets held maybe 5 times a game, and he just never seems to draw one, but he's always right there next to the quarterback. He's got a couple strip sacks on the year. Devin Eastern is a redshirt sophomore D tackle. He's really come on it, generating pressure up the middle. And then you have the senior leader, Kyler Baugh, who's also getting pressure up the middle. So, and then you got guys that were rotating like Jalen Logan Redding. I think Danny Strigano actually leads us in sacks, which is funny because he's kind of more like the run disciplined D end, if you will. But Yeah, so we're excited about the D line. So if that's what it comes down to, we're thrilled. I will say though, quarterbacks that can move a little bit, we've let them get out of the pocket and then had breakdowns in the back end. So that would be my biggest concern, is just the defense is very athletic and we feel like they're a gifted, defense talent wise, but there's just been lapses in not knowing what the situation is, or letting guys get out out of the pocket and make plays downfield. So I would say this: if I'm Purdue, I'm trying to target the opposite safety, usually Green, the opposite safety of Tyler Nubin in man, or just do the quick outs to try and get the linebackers moving side to side. Because outside of Cody Lindenberg, that's probably been a little bit of an inconsistency as our linebackers' ability to cover the pass. So, yeah, that's what I got.
And it was interesting to hear Ryan Walters in his press conference this week talk about Tyler Nubin, and was saying that he was just a guy that he chalked up as being an automatic, like he's going to the NFL. And then he said he didn't realize that he was back until he saw him at Big Ten Media Day and was like, "What's this guy doing back?" Like he should have gone. So really special talent there in that guy. And I'll be really curious to see what Graham Harrell tries to do to scheme and then try to get him on the opposite side of the field as the play is being run. So really excited to see just to see him. We have an up and coming true freshman safety on our defense. Dylan Thieneman.
Wow.
There's been 3 Thieneman brothers. Sorry. Yeah. Dylan Thieneman, who's been electric. And I'll be really excited to see how he does against your receiving core as well. Russ, I'm sorry. I think I interrupted you right there.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good. I was just like, man, we got a Dylan on the show and you got Dylan's name wrong.
Listen, we all know Dylans are pure athletes. Okay. There's no doubt about it.
Speaking of Dylan, do you have anything that you want to warn these guys about or give them, confidence about?
We all know I do so much prep before podcasts and games. We know I'm in here watching film 24. Now I got nothing, dude. Listen, boy, no, it'll be a great game. I expect a really good close game, but no, I got nothing.
Yeah, I will say to y'all's point, Card has displayed, some mobility this year, not nearly as much as what I think Purdue fans have wanted to see. We think he could do more with his legs, but he's also been pretty banged up. So we don't want him kind of pushing the issue, especially in the season.
He's dealing with an injured O-line that's torn to hell. So
yeah,
not ideal, when you're a scrambler.
Yeah. So as far as our defense goes, Frank already mentioned Dylan Thieneman kind of being one of the up and coming stars on our defense, but we also have 2 of the best pass rushers in the league. If you haven't heard about them, Nick Scorton and Kadron Jenkins have I think the most sacks and or tackles for loss of any duo in the Big Ten. So we've got some stars. We got some good pieces on the defense. So that'll stand out to you, definitely the way they can get after the quarterback. But I think the thing that will surprise you all the most, have any of you caught a Purdue game yet? By chance, have you seen any?
Yeah, it's been a few weeks. The last one I saw, you guys were lighting up Illinois, so I was feeling pretty good last week. But,
okay, so did you notice anything different about our defense?
I'm probably not going to say the right answer, so no.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good. So Frank liked this analogy, so I'll use it again. Have you all played Madden before?
Yeah.
So you ever remember the play that is punt return, like safe man?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what I joke about our defense kind of looking like. We put like for the most part, we put 10 guys within 3 or 4 yards of the line of scrimmage. And then you'll often see Dylan Thieneman 20, 25 yards off the line of scrimmage. Like you might watch the game.
He's not even on the screen.
Yeah, you might think, man, Purdue's only playing with 10 guys. They're pulling a Notre Dame here. What's going on? But no, Dylan Thieneman is just so far off the screen that you can't see him. He's so far off the line. So, but he does collapse on the ball quickly. He's not a guy that just stands out there and waits for something to come his direction. He'll count to 2 or 3, and then he'll make a read. He'll either go after a receiver over the top or he'll go after the run game, whatever. But that's the thing that I think that will stand out the most about our defense is kind of how he prides himself in not really having a name for the defense. That's Coach Walters, that is. And there's not really any one scheme that he uses as far as, what guys are going to do, rushing the ball, going into zone, going into man. He just tries to confuse as much as possible. He tries to switch up the looks as much as possible, and that's kind of been his calling card as far as defense goes. How do you guys feel about Kaliakmanis? He's a sophomore. He's not exactly the most prolific guy as far as numbers go. I think he's had one game at 200 yards, and that was his biggest passing game. But that's not really been y'all's specialty, anyways. It's been run the ball, kind of Big Ten style football. But is he somebody that is, he's the guy for sure? Like he's going to be the starter for the next 2.5 years, or are you guys looking for somebody else to come in and maybe give him, a quarterback competition?
Max, you want to go first on this one?
Yeah. I guess to answer your first question, I think we've overall have liked him. He's, we've seen what he can do. I think coming in last year, he came in against Nebraska towards the end of the season, then kind of wrapped up the rest of the season as the starting quarterback. And, we had Tanner Morgan for, it felt like 12 years. So when this tall, strong arm quarterback came in, we were like, oh, wow, this is nice. Like, this is what it's like to have a real passing quarterback. So coming into the year, we all kind of thought, he was going to have to be the guy to kind of take over the new regime on offense. And at times he just hasn't shown the consistency of the accuracy, whether it's either bad decisions or just not throwing the right ball. He just can't kind of figure it out at times. I know we've talked about too, it feels like even when he's having a good game, it seems like in moments where he's got to have it, he just kind of doesn't have a good feel for like the situations. Point at the end of the last game, not, an easy dump off the tight end for a first down wins us the game, and he just overthrows them. It's things like that just the inconsistency. And I know it's technically like his first year being the full-time starter, but seeing what we saw at the end of last year, we know he has the talent. So we don't know if it's too much of just the coaching staff getting in his head or new offense coordinator or what, but he just hasn't shown the overall consistency for the talent that we know he has. So to your second question, if he is the guy, I don't know. I think we've kind of started questioning it in this era of the transfer portal. Maybe we go find someone else if he really is not going to step up and kind of finish up this year. Unfortunately, we need someone that can be consistent and, win us some games.
I would say the last 2 weeks, he's probably silenced the transfer portal talk a little because overall he has had some critical misses, like you said, Max. I think PJ will chalk that up to experience. But the last 2 weeks, he's been much more accurate overall. So without these last 2 games, I think we're pretty shaky on him. But yeah, I think he's trending in the right direction overall is all I would really have. But if he struggles, if we lose these last 3 games and it's mainly because we can't hit guys that are wide open, then I think they'll go after somebody. But I can't see, I was listening to PJ on the radio today and he was talking about how we want to be a program that develops up the quarterback. Not saying we'll never not go to the portal, but Athan was like his, Athan was the most talked about recruit I think we've had in a long time. He's a 4-star guy out of Illinois. Illinois was pushing hard for him. A lot of other teams wanted him. So I think they're going to kind of like ride or die on the development of Athan and how it goes. So I don't see him getting switched out.
What do you think, Spencer?
Yeah, I agree with both Max and Kurt. I think that, trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, like I said earlier, I feel like the conservative nature of this offense and running the ball 30 to 40 times doesn't really give Athan an opportunity to really take the keys and have, control over the offense. I do feel like he's improved over the past 2 weeks. I do feel like because our running backs have been banged up, we have had to rely on going to the air a little more. I do think that there's room for improvement, and it'll be telling these last 3 games. He had a tremendous first half last week. I think he went like 11 for 13, 100 plus yards. I think he had a pair of touchdowns too or something in the first half. But then the second half, it was like, lights were off. And I don't know if that was because, we just kind of went back, PJ again, he plays not to lose. He doesn't really play to win the game and just kind of step on the gas, even if you have a lead. So I don't know if it was that or they just, Illinois' defense just took over. But yeah, I just like to see him be kind of consistent throughout the game, and hopefully, again, these last 3 games kind of show him that he's going to be the guy for the next few years.
Nice. Well, I feel like Frank and I have been kind of rapid firing questions at you all. Do you have any questions for us about kind of our season, coach, signal stealing or sign stealing, apparently? Anything?
I'll start. Well, let's start with your coach. Just, was this the season you guys were picturing? Because, I mean, you just won the West. Brom leaves, bringing a completely different, philosophy, defensive head coach. So, like, what, maybe touch on what your expectations were, and then, like, how are you feeling about the job he's doing now and the future that he's gonna have?
Frank, Dylan, you want to take this first?
Yeah, I'll start there. I mean, so my expectations realistically were, a 6-6, a 500 season. We lost a lot. We lost 5 players to the NFL, I think it was. We lost our head coach, and we lost our 2 best offensive linemen. We're not necessarily a program that's built to recover from that type of a loss necessarily, but we did bring back a lot of key guys, especially on the defensive side. And I think earlier in the season, there were some games that, had we not shot ourselves in the foot, we would have won. I mean, Fresno State comes to mind. We should have won that game. And now, I mean, there's no should in sports, but, for all intents and purposes, that's a game we had, and we just, threw away at the end. Then we go and we win at Virginia Tech. Syracuse, I think we had 5 turnovers in that game and still had a chance to win it at the end. We were in the game in Wisconsin. And so we've just lost a lot of what I'm going to call 50-50 games, and a lot of it's been self-inflicted. You guys talked about running backs having fumble issues. We've had the same thing happen with Devin Mockabee really struggling holding on to the ball this season. Defensively, I expected us to be a little bit better than we are. That being said, we've just had a ton of injuries. And I know that's the name of the game in football. Every team's going to deal with injuries. We've just had a ton of, like our best corner is going down, linebackers going down really thin at the linebacker position now. We're starting some freshmen at corner now. It's just, really, I expected a little bit better defensively. We bring in, often on the offensive side of the ball, we bring in one of the top recruits in the country, or top transfers in the country, in Hudson Card. We haven't been able to protect him as well as, what we would have hoped. And I think in a scenario where he's a little bit better protected, he performs a little bit better. But thoughts on Walters as a whole, I mean, next season we have, as of now, like a top 25 recruiting class. Last time I checked, I know we didn't have a guy decommit today. Not necessarily the most highly touted recruit in the class. But, the future looks really good. I just think that we have to be patient, and we have to wait until we kind of get that pipeline going. But he's a very confident guy, and I don't think he is going to blow any smoke. I think he's going to tell these guys, what their role is going to be and how they're going to participate. And he's going to tell guys that aren't going to play that you're not going to play. So I think he's a very different coach than what we're used to seeing. We're used to seeing kind of the vanilla, button down, guy who doesn't really use social media, all of a sudden down to this young guy who's, blaring music in the locker room, getting players hyped up. So he really brings a lot of energy, and fans were kind of resistant to that at the beginning. But ultimately, I think that he is a good long-term solution. It's just going to take a little bit of time for us to get there.
Yeah, pretty much everything Frank said, because he's the big brain of the operation. But I think there's a big level of hype coming into the year. Walters being a hype guy, kind of like what Frank said. But of course, injuries have really put a damper on a lot. I love Walters. I think I hope he's the guy. I think he's the guy. I know you guys aren't on Purdue Twitter, but we are, and it has been a disaster the last few days, and people want Walters fired. They compare him to Daryl Hazel, which is the most ridiculous thing anybody can ever come up with. I was in the trenches for Coach Walt, and if he's watching, which I know he is, remember me when you're out there when we're doing it big, and I was the one sticking up for you, because so many people are upset. And I think it's this for a lot of fan bases. When things aren't going good right away, they panic, they freak out, they hit the panic button, everything's done, the world's ending, but then everything will be fine. So I think the guy's been head coach for 9 games now. Like, let's relax, let's kind of sit back and let the process roll out. But no, I love Coach Walt. I think he's a great coach. I think he works really well with the kids he's got coming in. He relates really well to the youth, some may say. But I think everything's fine. You know, it's just one of those years. First year head coach, first ever, time being a head coach. Injuries, we talked about the offensive line among many others and everything Frank said. So I think everything will be all right. I'm excited still. I'm not hitting the panic button yet. A lot of people are, but Purdue fans need to relax. They just need to chill. It's basketball season, okay? It's almost over. Just a few more games and we'll be all right. Let's get the bucket and let's call it a year and let's get the next year.
Well, one thing I think that's important too for Purdue fans to remember, according to PFF, we have officially played the hardest schedule in the country. Not number 5, not number 4, but actually number 1 now. So it's hard to have something new happen, a whole new coaching regime, a whole bunch of new players, a whole bunch of guys leave, and then go play the hardest schedule in the country. It's hard to not have. It's hard to have those two things happen, and have such a bad season with respect to record and not panic. There's just a lot of change, but I think when you factor that in, and it also doesn't look good that our previous coach, goes to another school and is having a ton of success, but he also inherited an 8-win team at that school who had their coach leave. So it wasn't like he inherited a bad team that needed to rebuild. He just went to, he had a great opportunity in front of him. And I don't blame him for going.
Nick Burris brings up a good point in the comment. Purdue fans, especially our age, are simply exhausted of rebuilds. I'm younger than all of you, but that's fine. I'm still young and spry. But rebuilds suck, right? Like nobody wants to be in a rebuild, but face it, Purdue fans, we're not Ohio State, we're not Michigan, we're not Alabama. We can't continually rebuild year after year and bring in these absolute massive individuals who just happen somehow to be 18. Like these guys are 7 foot, 400 pounds. We aren't going to get that. We're not at that level yet. Hopefully one day we will, but as of right now, we are not in that position to just be like, oh, everything's fine year after year. Like there's going to be these years where you're going to fall off a little bit, but hopefully the key is that you bounce back. That's still to be determined, but we'll see.
Yeah. So Frank touched on it, how much we lost last season. It wasn't just the normal, we did lose guys at the draft. We had 5 guys get drafted, which is nice for a program like Purdue. Sorry, Dylan. But one of the big things I think that gets lost in this coaching transition is we were way behind the game. So we, you see a lot of coaching transitions that happen now. They happen right at the end of the season or sometimes even before the end of the season. We got 2 teams in the conference that they fired their coach either before the season or during the season, and they have an interim guy that seems to be kind of nailing down the job. Well, we went to the Big Ten championship game, so we played a week longer than everybody else. And then the week after that is when we lost our head coach. And then we started losing guys to the portal. We started losing recruits, decommitting, and we still didn't have a new coach, and we're losing guys. And a week or 2 goes by, we still don't have a new coach.
And some of those guys followed that coach.
Yeah.
So where does he coach again?
The Birds with Teeth University.
Birds with Teeth.
Down in Louisville.
Don't say Louisville, guys. Don't say Louisville because these 2 live there and they'll tell you it's Louisville.
Yeah, but by the time we hired Coach Walters, a lot of time had gone by. A lot of guys in the portal had already signed. A lot of the guys that decommitted from Purdue already recommitted somewhere else. And so I was kind of like, well, this is definitely going to be a rebuilding year. We've lost all these guys. We're way behind on the coaching search. He's going to be way behind on recruiting. But then he came in and he hit the portal hard, especially with Hudson Card. That was the big guy that he got. Many thought was one of the top quarterbacks in the transfer portal, and he got a few other bodies here and there that kind of made me believe, okay, maybe we can build on this. And his mindset was, we're going to build on going to the Big Ten championship game last year, and so I was very high on that. And then, even before the season started, we're starting our 3rd string center, and our star tight end is out, and we're thin at wide receiver, and it's kind of like, okay, we'll see.
And then your center's playing 2 other positions.
Right. But, as Dylan alluded to, these people on Twitter that are comparing him to the worst eras in Purdue football and some of the worst coaches in Purdue
9
football.
wins in 4 seasons are comparing this guy to, and he's coached 9 games in his entire career. I could go on.
The other part of that is
nuts.
Purdue has stars on their team this year. Purdue's got guys that are going to be in the conversation for, the all freshman team in conference, for, first team, second team honors in conference. And we didn't have those in those bad years of the Purdue football program. We didn't have guys getting drafted. We didn't have guys getting talked about as great prospects. We were just getting beat 63-10 each week and 56-7 in
MAC schools.
Yes, to like terrible schools.
And we're friends with a lot of those guys that were on those teams. They were great. Okay. I don't listen. Shout out to my guy Chuck. But I mean, they'll tell you, we've had them on the show. Those years were the worst. I was there every home game. I don't know why I did it to myself, but I did, and it was terrible. It was not fun.
Yeah. I guess, but what I mean is, I guess production wise, like they were obviously good athletes. We did still have guys like Raheem Mostert was from that era, right?
You had, somebody tweeted the other day, Hazel had a lot of guys, Raheem, so many others, and then just couldn't. It just absolutely did nothing with it.
And they weren't even in the conversation for like all conference honors when they played. At least we have guys right now that, Dylan Thieneman's second in the country in solo tackles. I already talked to you about Scorton and Jenkins. Card is actually, I think, still top 4 or 5 in the conference in passing yards. So, I don't think the sky's falling. I think everybody needs to chill out. Like, I don't understand, where they're getting this, this is the worst team in Purdue football history. Like,
it makes
that's nuts.
They have no basis behind it. They just, I have guys in my comment or my replies on Twitter, X, whatever the hell you want to call it, that are like, fire him, like get rid of him. And they're probably the same people that are like, fire Painter, which is also ridiculously stupid. But I've tried to put myself in their shoes, and I can't, and I'm dumb. I can't be that dumb. And I'm pretty damn dumb, but those people are even dumber. I've told them that on Twitter. I'll say it on the podcast. They're dumb. Sorry.
What else y'all got?
So when looking into you guys a little bit, I was shocked that you guys already talked about that you had 2 guys with, I think, 7. Sorry, my dog's trying to jump up on my lap right now.
Oh, we love
that. You had two guys with 7 sacks, according to the internet. At least that's how many they got. And you mentioned having the young safety so far back off the field. Are you guys more of an aggressive style defense up front and then just let people beat you over the top, or maybe talk about maybe the style of your defense and what have you guys been struggling with on defense? Let's go with that.
Yeah, just right off the top, I would say we're not a necessarily beat over the top defense. The intermediate stuff, the slants have definitely hurt us, but Dylan Thieneman's the second fastest dude on our roster. So he doesn't get beat very often. So we don't really give up the home run play as often as what we have in the past, and especially some of those bad
We don't
years.
throw those. So
yeah. But we're definitely, we're aggressive up front. Having 10 guys that close to the line of scrimmage, you've got it. You're obviously playing some kind of aggressive defense, but it's a mix of things, and I think Frank can probably talk more on that.
Yeah, it's pretty rare that we're not rushing 5, a minimum 5 at minimum. And we're almost exclusively man as well. But the who's covering who is always kind of a mystery. So there's a lot of confusion and a lot of schematic misdirection that goes on defensively. But it's kind of he's not looking to fool anyone necessarily. He's looking to perfect what he does. So you think about offensively with Iowa, or maybe defensively with Iowa, like what you're going to get. They're just so good at doing it. Historically with Wisconsin offensively, what they're going to do. They're just really good at doing it. So I think that's the identity he's trying to create defensively. The pass rush is very good. The combination of Kadron Jenkins and Nick Scorton on the edges is they're in the quarterback's face pretty frequently. And I'm glad you mentioned sacks versus pressures. Sacks aren't the most telling stat. Pressures are pretty significant as well. And actually looking at Athan's numbers under pressure, he's actually pretty good, which is another thing that has me concerned about this game this weekend. His adjusted completions percentage goes from 69 to 61 under pressure, so not a huge drop off there. You see some quarterbacks go, drop 20% in that stat. So really interesting stat there. But yeah, it's more of a really aggressive, man, lots of hand fighting and lots of sticking to your receivers. Defensively, so it's a new scheme, one that we're not necessarily used to seeing as Purdue fans, and I think there's been a little bit of hesitation in the kind of transition from the old style of playing to the new style. But the one key piece is is seeing him in there in the backfield because his speed. I mean, I think he is a sub 4.4 40-yard time, so he's really, really quick, and he's saved a lot of home run passes and a lot of would-be touchdowns with his speed.
Yeah, so I think Nick or Cody, one of you all said something in the comments about our cover corners have not been great. That's something that, we also need to work on getting our guys for, is because, the guys that are, quote, playing cover corner, 4 of them that play the majority or have played the majority of the snaps this year, 2 of them were transfers and 2 of them have played safety their whole career. And now they're getting asked to play cover corner. So that's another reason we're kind of struggling with the getting diced up by the intermediate stuff, because they're getting put in different spots that they aren't necessarily used to playing. But, Walters is like Frank said, he's sticking to his guns and he's trying to get them to perfect this craft. And you've seen what can happen when that happens against Illinois. It worked very well. We started compounding the big plays and it kind of snowballed and it turned into a good result. But we're about 50 minutes. So we're about 10 minutes short of an hour. So we'll go ahead and start hopping into kind of actual predictions and what you guys think is going to happen. And maybe you can throw a score in there. So I'll let you guys start there down there at Sky U.
All right. So this is kind of tough for me, especially coming after this loss. We know Walters was that defensive coordinator at Illinois before coming. Gophers have been struggling against Illinois past few years. That kind of worries me, even though there's been banged up, even banged up on defense and across the team, it still is a worry to me. It almost feels like I hope that PJ gets these kids to come in hyped. It's appeared to me it was a little deflating, and Max, Kurt, and I were certainly deflated right after that football game because everything just kind of fizzled right in front of us in the span of 3 plays. So I think keys to the game are, discipline. Usually PJ keeps the guys very disciplined, and we can handle penalties. So I think that's important, but also being tough up front. I think the winners up front in the trenches are going to win this football game. That being said, because of the injuries that you're experiencing up front, I think that the Gophers might have the edge. I'm going to go Gophers 17-14.
I like it. Yeah, for me, I think the key for me is really just how this team responds. If we can just come out, I feel like the easiest motivator here is, hey, you get a 2:30 game on NBC against a team that has been struggling. So this is your time to go and play on national TV again and show what you can do. And hey, we're not, no one's ever out of the West race, right? I mean, like Nebraska could still make the Big Ten championship game. So we'll see what's going on. The biggest thing is if we do get out to an early lead, I hope PJ keeps his fingerprints off of it and lets the offense keep rolling and actually trying to score points, because it feels like that just never happens. But I think we come away with a win, 24-17.
Yeah. If we get Darius Taylor back, that will be huge. I'm not going to hold my breath. We did get Zach Evans, who's like our RB2 now this year, back a little bit last game. He seemed to be on a pitch count, though, because he only carried the ball like 10 times. Didn't get it a ton. But, yeah, I like our D-line against your guys' O-line just on paper. So I think that's going to be an edge. And I just think that we're going to run the ball enough to maybe limit your guys' ability to get after the passer. So watch for Daniel Jackson on offense. He's going to be the guy that we do attempt deep shots to. He's our best receiver. He seems to make a pretty nice play for a big gain or a touchdown every game. So I'm going to go with the Gophers 24-20. I don't think it'll be pretty, but I think it's going to be a close one. We're all homers, I guess. We're going to stick with the Gophs and pull this one off.
Let's keep going in a circle there. Frank, what you got?
Yeah, so I'm kind of, Spencer, I'm kind of in the same camp as you and thinking that, this game's going to be won in the trenches. One interesting thing that I did just recently read about this game is that there are only 2,000 tickets left, which is like shocking given that, we're a 2-win team right now. So I think if there's one advantage we have, Yeah, you're right. It's a 3:30 Eastern game. On prime time. We're talking a potential sellout. Now, attendance sellout doesn't always equal full stadium. But I think that ultimately it comes down to a couple of things. Does Abdul Rahman Yassin play? Because that just gives us that extra speedy receiver, and it makes us that much harder to defend. Does Jack Ansel play? We don't even know if our elite punter is going to be playing after
friend of the program.
Yeah, I got tackled against Michigan and no flag. So there's just a lot of question marks in terms of who plays. So I think it comes down to the atmosphere, and it comes down to who actually plays for Purdue. But I think it's going to be an ugly game. Purdue has shown the ability to stop the run against some pretty good running backs this season. If we can do that again, I think Purdue can pull out a 17-14 win, but in Purdue's favor.
Yeah, I'm hoping Purdue comes out with a chip on their shoulder. I'm hoping they come out a little pissed off about how the season's gone so far. I'm hoping Card plays a good game and that our guy Devin Mockabee, runs downhill like he has been in the past. Hopefully that is while holding on to the ball. So my prediction each and every single week, I don't give scores. It's Boilers by 1 billion, baby.
Yeah, that last part I think is what's going to be the key. Not the Boilers by billions part, but
the second to last.
The second to last. The hanging on to the football, I think, is where it's going to come down to, because I think both D lines are going to perform quite well. I think we're going to see a lot of big plays, tackles for loss, sacks. It's going to be who can hang on to the football. I think I give our running backs an edge. I think with Mockabee and Tracy and Downing, we've got a pretty good three-headed monster there. Our passing game hasn't been as great. Like I said, we started the season thin at that position, both wide receivers and tight ends. We got Garrett Miller back healthy, but then we lost Max Clare, who looked like a pretty promising freshman. But I think if we can hold on to the ball, and the key to that attendance thing, Frank, that you said, is the fact that it's going to be 61 degrees in November in the Big Ten in the Midwest, and that's not very common. I'm used to going to these late season games for Purdue because the tickets are cheap, because nobody wants to go because it's going to be like 10 degrees. So I think that will give us a good edge. And I think that's why Vegas gives us a 1-point edge. And, I think if we can hold on to the football, I think you see, it still being a pretty ugly game. Because like I said, when the defensive lines are feasting, the offenses don't do much. So, I think it'll be, maybe something like we'll say like a 19-17, kind of an odd score. And Purdue,
the year
Purdue
you were
takes
born.
It out. There you go. So I do want to surprise at least one of y'all at the last second here. So do y'all play fantasy football? Anybody?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So Max, did you realize that you somehow snuck into our fantasy football league?
Oh man. Yes. And I apologize I guess I shouldn't apologize, because you guys all probably have a win against me.
No, so you are in last, but you actually did somehow manage 2 wins just by being auto drafted, because you and Frank got auto drafted and you guys ended up with 2 of the best teams. I think just the lack of moves is kind of what put you behind there. So I had to call you out on that. But anybody have any parting notes on this game Saturday?
No, I think I agree. I think it's going to be ugly. Our right tackle is the weakest pass blocker, so if you guys attack him, that's a spot. But don't
classic
do that.
West football. These West games are fun. So
are any of y'all actually able to make the trip at all, or?
No, I got. We just got back from Arizona for 1, and then 2, I got. There's like diaper keggers going on now. That's a thing, and so I got my cousin's having a baby, okay. So I'm driving up north here in the state, and doing that Saturday. I'll be there for the game. Probably hitting the keg pretty good and getting a free ride back for my brother. So yeah.
Dylan, you gonna be able to make it?
I'm hoping. It's jury's still out. It can be a game time decision. I'm hoping I am. I may have 2 free tickets to anybody. I don't know. I'll let you know on Twitter.
Hey, there you go. Well, before we go, I want to go ahead and thank Big Banter Sports for being a partner with us and helping things like this happen, because it's always fun to talk about our games, but it's even cooler to get a perspective from the other fan base and a podcast that knows a lot more about that team than what we do. So appreciate you all tuning in. We're right at that hour mark, so hopefully we didn't make
Hold
you
on,
stay too
you
long.
just got to last 10 more seconds.
What's
you just
that?
got to make it 1 hour.
All right. Okay. So Nick Burris said, if you guys come hit me up, I will do that. So my dad and I are headed up. We're going to try to get up there as early as we can to try to tailgate a little bit.
I mean, you wake up at the butt crack of dawn, so that
I do. But those mid-afternoon starts too are great for tailgating. I think that also builds up the atmosphere.
Doesn't that get in the way of your afternoon nap?
You know what? I'll manage. We'll get an energy drink or coffee in there. And
Cody, I'll have my people call your people. I'll let you know if I don't end up going.
I can attest to Nick's tailgates. They're always a good time.
Oh, Nick's a good time. Listen,
Yeah.
there's no doubt about that. Nick's a damn good time. Right?
Yeah.
Nice. Well, thanks again to Blitzboard and to Martin Vintage and to the Sky you guys for joining us tonight. So hope you all enjoyed it. Hope you all learned a thing or two maybe, or had a laugh or two. But appreciate it.
He's 115.
Boiler up.